Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's Naked Truth. Trisha Hershberger here. Before we go ahead and get started, I want to thank our Naked Army vloggers from last week. That's Chris Kavaja, Nathan Nerwin, Hiram, Jeremy, Colin, Christopher, Julia, Prescott, and Kristen, Richard, James, Joey, Paolo, and Lawrence. Thank you guys for reminiscing about your first crushes with the Naked Army and sending in your own Naked Truth vlogs. That was a much lighter and more fun topic to talk about than the topic that I have chosen for this week. I wanted to talk about what happened in Paris this last Friday, because while, we could just try to look the other way and focus on there being a Memento remake, or, if Mystery Science Theater is coming back, which are fun things, don't get me wrong. Well, maybe not Memento, but anyway, I digress. I think it's important to talk about the real issues of the world, and on the Naked Truth, we've hit home and really discussed some very difficult to talk about topics, and I think that this is one of those. So I'm specifically referring to the attacks that happened this past Friday, November 13th in Paris, where 129 people were dead and another 352 were wounded. The attacks were claimed by the organization ISIS. They claimed responsibility for them. And it serves as a big reminder to all of us that there are groups out there who don't want peace. I think that a lot of us in Western culture, or, in a lot of countries, think that we're all striving for peace, but that's not necessarily the case. And this was a big reminder of that. So rather than kind of discuss the facts of what happened, because I'll leave that to you guys to read, and it also completely depends on which media sources you read and where you get your information. I try to read from all over the internet, so I'm getting bits from everywhere and not just what one specific news source wants to relay. Please read up on your own to find out what happened. But what I'd really like to discuss in this vlog is what we think the proper ways to move forward are. On one hand, the reaction to something like this when it happens is that we must go to war. And, there are a lot of things to support that. ISIS and, other groups like ISIS don't look like they're going to stop anytime soon. And it's scary because they target civilians. They're not going out there and fighting troop to troop or militant to militant. They're, hitting people in schools. They're hitting people at concerts. They're hitting people wherever they can to make an impact, and they're trying to scare people. And, the knee-jerk reaction is to say, I need retribution for this. Like, we need to do something about that, and at the same time, we need to defend ourselves. And if defending ourselves means obliterating these organizations and these people who believe that the way to bring good in the world is to slaughter other people, then maybe that's the answer. And I know that there's a lot of people out there that feel like increased surveillance, which is kind of, what the U.S. has been doing up until now, cracking down on TSA procedures, et cetera, that maybe that's not working. And it's, it's easy to kind of jump to the idea, or, it makes sense to jump to the idea of, if we take out their leaders, then if we take out their leaders, can we take out the idea? Can we take out the power they have? And, a lot of it, when I'm thinking about groups that think that they are in the right by slaughtering other people en masse, I think of the Nazis, and, World War is what it took to eradicate that. But did that eradicate that idea? No. I mean, I'm sure there are still Nazis out there. I don't know any personally, but I'm sure that there are. However, they don't have the power to have concentration camps and that kind of thing anymore. But this is a very different type of warfare and a very different ideology. And then on the other hand, people will say that war doesn't make sense because we've tried that before and we saw that it didn't work out. You send troops into one area and maybe you can help take out the leaders in that one area, but that's, again, not taking out that entire idea. Then there's people who say if we go to war, that will incite more hatred towards Western culture and towards our countries. And that is definitely true. There will be people who are innocents who are harmed in any war, and I'm sure that will make them want to retaliate in much the same way. I feel like that argument could be used against any war. Like maybe we shouldn't have attacked Germany in World War II, because that will just make people more angry against the Allies, you know, like stuff like that. As far as what Obama has been saying about it, as of the recording of this vlog, Obama said that, you know, fighting an idea is not as simple as going to war with one specific territory, and that his strategy that he has been doing is working, but that it will take time and we can't rush into things foolishly. And then there are people who say that, you know, we're talking about rushing into war over this when there's really other things we should be focusing on, like the bombings in Beirut that, you know, people say maybe the media didn't cover, but I tend to think that it's more that we just didn't pay as much attention to that coverage if it was covered. But anyway, or, you know, or issues at home. So those are all things to think about too. And then it brings up the idea of the Syrian refugees. You know, these are people who are fleeing from the same type of violence that's making us so angry right now and is making us want to retaliate. And it's very easy to generalize and say, well, you know, let's just better be safe than sorry. And, you know, too bad if you are not radicalized, too bad if you are not part of ISIS, if you're even from that area, you're not allowed in our country. I think it's very easy to be scared and generalize everyone into one lump group. But, I mean, not all Muslims are jihadists, and just like not all white people are KKK, and not all Christians are Westboro Baptist Church. I think anyone can see the flaw in that idea, but I certainly understand how it's very natural to want to do that when you're scared. And I think a lot of people are scared right now, which sucks, because then that means that the attacks and what they were for, that they achieved their goal. If a lot of people are scared, they're trying to incite fear. You know, these people that are trying to come to us are seeking help from these same type of attacks and from this same type of fear. And I know that some of our more right-wing government officials have said that maybe we have a religious test for people when they come in. And Obama was super against that, you know, citing back that this is always, America at least, has always been a land of religious freedom. And people have always throughout history fled religious persecution to come here as a safe place. So having a religious test and turning away some religions and not turning away others, he said, was completely not what America stands for. And, you know, I think that there are fair points to be had on both sides of this argument. So my question to you guys is, how do we prevent further attacks like this while at the same time offering aid to people who need aid and not infringing on our freedoms? Or is that not possible? Do we need to temporarily reduce the freedoms we have enjoyed and not be able to help people to achieve that goal? Let me know your thoughts in the comments, or in a Naked Truth vlog of your very own. And again, I encourage people to kind of go out there and read as much as you can about everything that's been happening. You know, I the one thing I can say is if there has been any nugget of good in, you know, all of this violence and horror that's been happening, I think that people are really going out of their way to educate themselves about things that maybe they weren't educated about before. So yeah, so I guess that's what I wanted to say, and I'm really looking forward to seeing the comments in the vlogs this week. And I hope that everyone has a great week, and I will see you next week. Stay safe, everyone. Bye.